Tim, thanks so much for joining me here. Oh, it's afternoon for you. It's early morning for me here in Australia, but it is great to connect. And I think it's incredible that just through the platforms like Zoom, etc., now so many of our audience at the Man That Can Project can hear your incredible story. You have released a book, which I've read, as I was just saying, right through, and I've got notes literally all the way through the book of so many things that stood out to me and really aligned with my mission and how we can help men to be better. So I think you're a great leader in that space for that. So thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to dive in here.
And so Tim, your story, obviously to playing in the NFL, was one full of resilience, grit, setback, and I read even homelessness at times, but you just continued to persevere. Could we go back to the beginning, I guess, to the younger Tim when you first made a decision that you wanted to play in the NFL?
Yeah, that's man, it seems like forever ago now, as I have young kids who are reminding me every single day that I'm getting older. But this football dream, I'll say, started in the fourth grade. I started playing soccer and sports in kindergarten, and growing up, moving all over the places was a norm for us. A lot of instability, just not being able to control necessarily that core kind of fundamental housing issue. And so the thing that we had was constant was sports. I gravitated towards sports, and like that was my constant. That was my outlet. That was my joy. Regardless of what neighborhood, community you moved to, it like connected you, right? You gain your credibility, your respect, by going out there and competing and showing people that you could hold your own. And so, man, I loved every bit of just competition and competing. And, I started playing soccer, and for whatever reason, the soccer coach recommended my father to let me play football. And my father at the time said no, which is another lesson in and of itself. If you want your kids to do something, tell them the opposite of what you want them to do. And my father said no, but somehow I found a way on the football field. And it was something about from the first earliest time I remember, I enjoyed it, I loved it, and I fell in love with it. And I knew this was something I wanted to do.
That's incredible. And from that moment, obviously moving around the place, going to different schools, different towns, etc. What was that like for you? You mentioned instability, and I think people are drawn to stability. We love to have a place where we feel like we belong. What was that like for you as a young man developing? Did you find that sort of put any cracks in, or did you learn or gain a heap of benefit from that as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. Both. It was tough, and my siblings. Everyone takes. You can have two people grow up in the same household, same conditions, and they will take it completely different. Whether you come from limited resources or you come from wealth, it's different. It's like different stress and circumstances can just impact us all differently. And so for me, there were times where it was difficult to navigate. You're the new kid all the time. You don't really have like a core set of friends. You're trying to fit in. As you know, culture is there's so many nuances to culture. It's whether the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you look. And kids can be they can be tough. And so you're trying to fit in and find your place as you're learning who you are and your identity as a young adolescent, right? And so intertwining those together was tough sometimes, right? At what point do I fit in? At what point do I just say, forget it, this is who I am, right? But I also leaned into it because it kind of gave me the chip on my shoulder, right? You got to prove yourself all over again. Every new neighborhood, every new community, every new school, you're the new guy again. So you got to earn that respect. It became like a mantra of, I got to earn it all over again. And no one cares about who you did in that neighborhood or in that school or in that community. What are you doing here, right? So I learned to embrace it and kind of just become part of my personality.
Do you feel that's a benefit, having to continue to show up and prove yourself rather than being comfortable? Because I read in the book you believe it's so important to seek out challenge rather than just to remain comfortable. So do you think that having that chip on your shoulder worked to your advantage?
Oh, for no doubt. I look back at it now for sure. One of my favorite quotes: "We are what we repeatedly do." And the things you do more, you get reps. You get good reps. You get reps at them. You get better at them. And being able to start over and like never really arrived, like not being like this protege, like this superstar at a very young age. It's like you got to prove yourself all over again. And you get used to doing that and you develop confidence in doing that. And so the next situation, while it may be, from elementary school to middle school to high school to 4 different high schools, high school now to college, you build upon your last experience. And that's what I found began to happen for me. You look back and you're like, man, I've been here before. Yep. All right, here we go. Yep. This is just another situation. Let's keep doing it.
For you as well, obviously having those experiences. I remember you were one of the standout students at one high school, and you thought, this is awesome. And you went to another high school and you realized, oh shit, other people are working just as hard as me. So obviously natural ability, but also then training, but not sort of becoming complacent, because there's always going to be someone else working just as hard, if not harder than you, to achieve the same goals that you're working towards. For people out there who are listening, what motivated you to keep going even when the times got tough? And, jumping from school to school, you had to start again. That can beat a lot of people down. But what made you special in that situation where you just kept driving forward and didn't give up?
I'll say 3 things. I'll say one is I'm a firm believer. We all need one person to believe in us. There's so much research and out there. I didn't know this as a kid, obviously. I'm learning this now, right? But you need one person. The value of having one person to believe and support. And for me, I had more than one. I had both parents. I was fortunate enough from someone who has spent time with formerly incarcerated people, kids from underserved communities and disadvantaged communities. You're behind the 8 ball just by having no adults in your life, no positive role models, or one. So I had 2, regardless of the resources that we didn't have. I had 2 parents, and 2 supportive parents who poured into me, who never placed limitations on me, who matter of fact encouraged me. Like they refused to put a ceiling on me, and they refused to allow me or anyone else to put a ceiling on me. And so that confidence in that foundation was critical. It allows you to navigate. It gives you a solid base and foundation for which you're able to navigate all types of challenges in life. So that's one. 2, I was fortunate to find something that I love to do, right? And so we'll get to the book of A Dream Worth Fighting For, and you try to figure out what is worth fighting for. You can't fight for everything in life. You got to figure out the old saying, when to fold them, when to hold them, when to fold them. Yep. And there are certain things that we've all had resistance, but you were like, you know what, it's not quite worth me fighting for this. And so when you find those things that are deep rooted, that are more so like mission driven for you, we have a tendency to hold on to those things a little bit more. And so fortunately, I was able to find something at a young enough age, which again, there's a ton of research out there that the sooner you can find those things and lean into those things, and we can help our kids find those things that they desire, you're more likely to fight and to hold on and to persevere, even if you're just flat out terrible at first, so you just fall on your face. Those are the 2 things. Oh man, I'm drawing blank. There's one other thing, but it'll come to me. But those are a few of the
things. That's brilliant. Thanks for sharing that. So obviously, off the back of that, let's dive into the book a little bit. A Dream Worth Fighting For: Never Let Obstacles Stop You from Being Your Best Self. It sounds so simple when you read that, but obviously every obstacle is relative to the individual facing that. But you were at the peak. I remember it was like that time where you were about to secure, or it was your 4th season. And that's, from what I was reading, was the awesome contracts generally come after a 4th season in the NFL, and you injured yourself and you didn't want to believe it was true. Can you talk us through that moment, and then I guess lead into the comeback, and then what inspired you to write the book?
Yeah. So actually, if I could flip the page back quickly and then go, that 3rd thing, which is I typically start, this is why I probably forgot, but you always start with the why, and defining my why and why I was doing, what allowed you to come back and persevere. And it's connected to where we're going here with the next conversation. But those 3 things of having family, finding something that I enjoy, but also having a mission bigger than myself. Right. I had a conversation one day with the lady, with the mom who had young kids, and just sharing with her the difference when I stepped on the field versus when other kids stepped on the field. Like, the reason why I was playing this game was completely different. Like, we were playing the same game, but we had completely different motivators. And so you could tell the kids who were there because the parents made them be there. It was an extracurricular activity. And you could tell the kids who this is their meal ticket. Like, this is their way. Like, this is their way. And so if this comes down to 1 or 2 yards and this is everything for me and this is an option for you, there's no way you're going to beat me. There's absolutely no way you're going to beat me. And that mindset, approaching that mindset to the game, I love doing it. I had a solid support system, and I knew what I wanted to get out of this sport, right? And so when you approach it with that type of mindset, it gives you an opportunity to have a higher level of success, regardless of what you're doing. You fast forward to, you talk about what was that feeling like and how did I respond? You go from, again, we're talking 4th grade. You've got like this clear dream and vision of like, this is what I'm going to do. And you actually do it. Like, you're there. You're in the Super Bowl your first year. You're tracking well to all of the goals that you set out, and you can like just see it. You can taste it. You can feel it. It's right there. And then a blink of an eye, it's gone. Like, not a few years, like average play is 3 to 5 seconds. In 3 to 5 seconds, your life shifts, it changes. So you go from being at the peak, confidence, realizing a dream, in 5 seconds, you're questioning, will I ever play this game again? Who am I at 24 years old? That was a major shift, identity shift, emotional shift. And so it took a lot to, first of all, just acknowledge that, because you don't want to acknowledge that. I denied that. Any type of trauma that happens to us, we don't want to accept it. And then finally, once you do accept it, it's okay, well, what now? And what is that process of getting back to where I was, or redefining what a new normal would be?
What was that process like of acceptance? Because you mentioned there that when we have traumatic experiences, we don't want to accept it. And it is hard to create change or move forward if we don't first start with the acceptance. We just try to put our head in the sand and just hope that life carries on. But if we're carrying around that unsurfaced trauma, it can always rear its head at the wrong time. So for you, when you're at the absolute peak, how did you how did you begin that acceptance process?
Yeah, so I'm a big Jay-Z fan, and there's a quote he said once. He said, you can't heal what you don't reveal. And I mean, literal, that was my literal experience, where I've got doctors who are telling me, I mean, literally the team owner had to call me because I refused to get surgery, because I just was determined that I was going to find a way to come back from this. But yet they're saying, hey, the business of it is, first of all, you're not playing. And if we can't put you on injured reserve on IR, you're holding up a roster spot for us to sign somebody else. And so I literally could not move on. I refused to move on for like 2 weeks. But they're like, dude, the season is over with. We need this roster spot. But they were trying to be nice and not push me.
Yeah.
But it was just that denial. But it was the realization that the longer you hold on and you do not, the more you're impeding the healing process and your ability to move forward. Right? Like, you can keep holding on and acting and pretending as if this doesn't exist. But you're in this false reality that's not allowing you to move closer to the new reality that you like to create. So what do you want to do? You want to stay here? You want to stay in denial? Or you want to accept it, and then now it's like that first accepting it, and now you can start to move towards getting through it. And so there was like that realization and reminding myself of that helped me to start take small steps.
And the team had good faith in you as well, because I remember reading your coach called you up and said, hey, we're going to give you a spot next year anyway. Just get better. Like, do whatever you need to do.
That was the team owner. That was the team owner. I mean, look, typically, you don't, and as I mentioned in the book, you don't get a call from the team owner. And he called me, and and he assured me, and that was helpful.
How did that make you feel?
Oh man, you pray. I'm a man of faith, and I pray, and you ask for signs, you ask for guidance, you ask for just peace about certain decisions, and that came, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, unexpected call in the middle of the week, from your team owner who, typically you rarely have much interaction with, other than, sometimes when you're doing a contract or something like that. But he called and he took the time to let me know what the team felt about me, the impact that I had on the organization, and gave me reassurance that I was the kind of guy they like to build a team around. And so it helps put things in perspective when you've earned that respect from those around you that, hey, man, I just may be able to get through this.
So you were speaking about environment before, and obviously you have the parents that just never put any limitations on you as an individual. The people that you were surrounding yourself with, obviously, as your career grew, I'm sure your friendship circle potentially grew. When that injury happened, did you find out, I guess, or did some friends sort of fade away once you weren't in the spotlight for that moment in time? Or did you just know that from the get-go you had built a rock solid crew of people?
Both. I think there's some you took advantage of. Let me speak personally. Some I took advantage of that. Sometimes people are there, and you just take for granted that they're there, and they always will be there.
Yep.
And I was navigating. I went from being a college kid, as many are. Anytime you achieve any level of success, your life changes drastically. In a lot of ways, it has to. And so you go from being just this college kid living in a dorm room, using your meal swipes on campus, to, as a result of one weekend, you're a professional athlete now, and you've got to hire all these people. You've got to fire people. Like you got to be a professional like overnight in like a very public way. And it's just, I don't think people realize like that transition. There's not like a preparation. It's just like you're this, and then the next day you're a pro, and you're expected to behave like a pro, whatever that means. And so you're thrust in a ton of new environments, and you're meeting people, and you have to, right? You have to bring a whole new set of people who can help you navigate this new life this new normal. But when you're no longer playing, most of those people, it was most of those encounters are transactional.
Yep.
And so if there's not a transaction that's being had, those people are probably not going to be there. But you're navigating while you're playing, you need those people around you. And then when they're no longer there, it just reminds you, it's a further reminder, another reminder of, man, my life has changed. Agents aren't calling me as much. Accountant advisors, there's not, it's just, it's different. And so, yes, those relationships shifted and changed, but some of those previous relationships strengthened. It's when people are able to show up even more, and you form new connections based on where your needs are at this stage of your life.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So you accepted the injury and you began to rebuild. What gave you the hope that you could get back? Because had anyone ever reignited an NFL career before, like having years out of the game?
You know what? I have yet to find someone who's been out for 4 years due to injury and come back in football. The reason I say that is because I search. To answer your question, I search to find, because I'm a firm believer that success leaves clues, right? There's so much to be learned. My experience is not unique to, there are people who have been through more catastrophic, life-altering changes and events, and there are lessons to be learned. And so I would search in YouTube, books, and whatever I could find to learn about those who have overcome insurmountable odds, and what were the lessons that I could learn. Could I reach out to people? I called former athletes. And so, I did everything possible to try to just gain different nuggets and give me some inspiration and some hope of what was possible. But at the end of the day, it had to come back to where it started. What did I want out of this? And what was I willing to sacrifice and do to obtain it? What was that appetite? What was that risk profile and appetite like? And so, irrespective of whether I saw it accomplished before, I had a picture of what I wanted. I had people in my corner who believed in me and said, if you want to do it, then go for it. We're with you. And my wife said, hey, whatever it takes, whatever type of financial commitment that it takes from us, I'm with you. And so again, you go back to the foundation of when you were a little kid, before you had all the success, before you had the people telling you what you can do. That foundation was a vision, a why, and a core group of people believing in you, and you go for it.
Did you have people along the way telling you that you couldn't make it back?
More people telling me no than people telling me yes. Experts, medical experts. Man, I spent, no exaggeration, probably a quarter $250,000, if not north of that, on all types of experimental treatments. And I mean, I was willing to try anything to try to heal my knee and get it back right. And it's not possible. Or team's not interested, or it's do something else. You've got a family now. I had a kid along the way, and so yeah, more people saying that it could not be done than telling me that it could be done, for sure.
So how did you regain hope? Was it just continuing to go back to what that, fourth grade version of yourself kept aspiring to be? Or was there any, I guess, a conversation with a mate or someone that you reached out to while you were doing your research that helped you regain hope to go, look, I'm coming back. I don't care how long it takes?
Oh man, there was more than one time. There was a time, again, one of that, part of that is family. Family, those people around you. The value of having a strong, supportive group of people and sharing your goals with those people, community. This is what you do, right? You build communities. And when I was sat down in the hospital after the surgery, I had to rewrite a vision, a mission. Like, what was it now? It's different. And I shared that. And so there were times when I called my wife. I remember I'm down in Houston rehabbing after probably my second surgery, and my knee swelled up again. And I called my wife. I said, I'm done. I can't take it anymore. And she just reminded me. She said, hey, I believe in you. This is not what you agreed. You said you committed to this. I'm with you. Take some time, take the day off, but we're going to get through this. Or at times there was my mother. At times there was a close friend, but they reminded you of the mission and vision that you shared with them. And so there are times when you don't always have it in you, but it's critical to have people who believe in you, who know what your mission and your vision is, and then they can remind you of that.
Your wife sounds like an incredible person to be able to navigate that while you're going through a tough, challenging point. When, I guess, you have this vision of who you're going to become, you've regained hope, you've got the people around you. You mentioned that you redid your vision and you redid your why. A lot of people in life, setbacks, as you mentioned, people experience all kinds of setbacks, and it is relative to what they're wanting from their life. Where do you feel you learned the ability to go, look, I need to reassess where I'm at and replan? Because a lot of people, we have a plan, and then Mike Tyson is like, you've got a plan until you get punched in the face. And most people don't readjust that plan on the fly. We just go, okay, well, it's failed. I'm now a failure. You're one resilient individual. And you also, from what I've read about you and from what I've watched a couple of podcasts and YouTubes on you, you just continue to pivot. Like, you don't stop. It's quite incredible. And I know one of the things you mentioned was having those great people around you, but did you ever have a point in your life where you got sat down and said, hey, let's create a vision. Let's work out your why. Like, a lot of people don't get taught that, but you're just doing it. Mm. Where do you think that came from?
That's a great question. Yeah, I have to give my parents a ton of that credit. And my parents they would say the things like, if you can see it, you can be it. If you see it, you can be it. And for whatever reason, I just, there's, as a kid, you feel like you're listening to a quarter of what your parents are saying. They're saying so much and everything's a lesson, and it's, all right, I get it. But for whatever reason, that was the one thing that I actually listened to. And like, my dad would always say, see yourself in the end zone. Before you even touch the ball, see yourself in the end zone. Like, act like who you want, like act like who the person who would be, who would have the success. Like, don't act like who you are, act like who you would be if and when you had the success. Like, see it before you be it. Like, once it's here, The external was a reflection of what's here and what's here. And it was just like that repetition. You would hear them say that, and for whatever reason, maybe they said it so much that it became like a part of who I was, right? Like that became more reality. And so stuff like I would start to do things like cut out pictures of 49ers running backs and put my face on it and put it all over my wall. Like I would see myself as a professional athlete playing for the 49ers. Like that was real to me. When you see it so much and you control your environment so much, like again, anything that you repeatedly do, you're going to become really good at. And so I think it started there. And then the second piece of that was putting me in environments for other people who spoke and talked and functioned like that. And so I remember being introduced to my church home in Maryland, Pastor Mike Freeman. That's how he functioned. He spoke things into existence. He didn't speak where he was. He spoke where he was going, as if he already did it. And I'm seeing this guy, and I'm like, this guy's crazy. Like, what is he talking about? Right? Like, but you start to function like that. So I think that started with my parents, and then people who they introduced me along the way. And then you start to see it happen for yourself, and it becomes a part of who you are.
You speak to some very incredible points that I feel, I hear quite regularly. And I think a lot of people brush off just the significance of those 1%ers, one being the environment of people around you. And your parents, your wife, and the other people that you've mentioned sound like they're the most incredible people, and must have had their own experiences to go, hey, this is how we want to help influence Tim and his mindset and build him up. I think that's incredibly unique. The second thing is your ability to cast a vision and your drive and determination to do whatever it takes to get there. A lot of people, once again, hit maybe 1 or 2 or 3 obstacles and call it quits. It's not happening, but your desire and grit is truly unique as well. And then as well, the ability to openly talk about these things as well, I think is a huge thing for me. I love reading, and this is why I really enjoyed your book as well. Reading about people who have success in a way that, I was an athlete as well, and being able to read your story, I connected to so much of it. But then hearing the vulnerabilities that you share, but also the life stories that you've woven in here on how you get to that, because I think a lot of people love to show what life's like when it's great. But now that we can connect with yourself, Tim, and really see the adversity that you've overcome and the fact that you did it time and time again, not just to make it to the NFL, but you came back again and you went to, I think you played a league or 2 below the NFL in that 4-year period to make a comeback. Was that humbling for you, or what was that like to be able to do that?
Understatement. Yeah, humbling is that 4 years was humbling. Yeah, it was this XFL league that does not even exist. That's a whole in and of itself that you got to read the book. But yeah, it was humbling, But I think one of the most humbling things was when I'm sitting here, and I talk about it in the book, where I'm sleeping in my car, right? And the thing that drove me growing up was living in hotels and basements and things. Like there was this desire to never experience this, like, this sort of lifestyle and put my family through it. And so I worked tirelessly, just consistently. And then you feel like, man, I've done everything that I feel like I knew humanly possible to do. How in the world am I sitting back here sleeping in a car, right? Like, how did I get back here, right? But then you reflect in the middle of the storm, hurricane season in New Orleans, this car is rocking back and forth. And I'm like, you know what? I call my wife. I'm just like, I have no clue if I'm going to make it through the night. The storm is that violent. But I'm literally in the middle of a storm. There's like a peace that just comes over me. Like, Tim, you're in New Orleans. You made it back. Like, I reflect on the journey, and I'm like, through all of these things, everything around me changed, but the core of me remained the same, if not strengthened. And that gave me such a confidence. Like my life was forever changed because at that moment, it's like, Tim, it's in you. Like everything you need, it's in you. It starts with you. It's not a job. I can get fired from the Commanders tomorrow. Like that could happen. That doesn't change who I am and what I'm capable of producing. And if I lean into that, right, of like this internal strength and this internal assurance, the things around you just change. The people come and go. But my mission and who I am and my ability to pivot and turn all these things, that cannot be shaken. And so that grew out of that period of time. And I think it was that lesson in that time that forever changed my life.
Gave me goosebumps saying that. That was unbelievable. Is that what inspired you now then to write the book after you decided to call time on the career? Like, I know you're working with the Commandos still now, but, and actually even saying that, you've got an incredible job with the Commandos still in the industry that you love. Why did you decide to write a book off the top of that when you could have very easily remained comfortable and just carried on the day-to-day life?
Yeah, I had so many, it became a mission. You have so many I started having so many connections with people outside of the game. The beautiful thing about leaving the game is you get to experience real life. And when you're in the sports world, it's like this sports bubble, and that's your world. You live, sleep it, breathe it every single day. But you get outside of this sports bubble, and you start realizing you meet so many people, and again, you realize, man, your experiences are not unique. It's people are going through life altering changes and challenges every single day, every minute of every single day, like extreme, losing their health and their finances and their loved ones. And I mean, the pandemic showed us that. It didn't care what country, who you were, what ethnicity, what like socioeconomic state. It didn't care. Your life was changed. And for me, the more I started connecting with people and hearing these stories and having these conversations, I'm like, you know what? I remembered searching for people and answers and stories and lessons. And I'm like, you know what? I have a story. I'm still living and I'm still writing it, but I have a story and I have an experience. And who am I to not share that and share some of those lessons as I was searching for people? Who am I not to share that and underestimate and devalue the experiences that I had and not allow somebody else to say, you know what, man, I can take this in my journey. I can take that. I can take this. I can take that. And so that's what it became. It became a personal mission to share the experiences that I had with others.
Incredible. And for people who are connecting with your story, because there will be a lot of it, as we've mentioned, resilience, you were in your car, you were taking all these risks and opportunities to get back. Your wife even said, it doesn't matter what it takes financially, let's just commit to moving forward. What advice would you give to people, obviously, in using COVID, for example, who were shaken, whether it's relationship breakdowns through COVID or financially were rocked through COVID, maybe had some health scares through COVID, but like from your experience with coping with various things like that, like what would be the advice you would give there?
Oh man, advice as far as like getting back or just navigating it or
Yeah, just navigating, because I think the journey is different for everyone there.
Yeah. First off, not being in denial. It's I think we all did it for the first month or two. There was this false hope of it'll be over soon. It'll be over soon. It'll be over soon. It'll be over soon. And I think that started to just you get to a point where you're not dealing with the fact that life is different, and no one wanted to admit that the things are different. And because of that, people are holding on this false expectation of reality, and then they start to lose hope in the future of a better tomorrow, right? Like it's the same thing that I was in denial, right? Like my knee is different. I can't pretend like it's not different. My life is different. Like I'm older now. I come back into the game. I'm older now. I'm not able to do the same things, but I can be different. But I think that's the first thing. It's just like accepting and like, hey, embracing. Life has changed for many people and for most of us. And I don't need to try to fight to get back to a quote unquote new normal. I have to redefine normal and redefine where I'm going from here on out. So I think that's one, like really embracing that, understanding it's not that you did something wrong. It's not that you lost your purpose or that your life will never be the same. It's just life is different. That's one. And then two, redefining, taking the time to redefine how has this experience changed and shifted me. Certain priorities may not be the same priorities. Certain things that were important or certain visions may have come out of or certain experiences. Take time and capture that. Like I had to redefine what a vision was. And then three, staying connected. We all saw this in this pandemic. It was the isolation that hurt us all. Mm-hmm. Right? Like isolating ourselves, not being, not being close to people, these groups that, you've done a tremendous job of creating. Like stay connected to somebody and some people and someone who can pour into you. And whether that's through, online groups, whether that's through in person, like stay connected to a group that can continuously pull you forward. Because that's what we need. There's so many times where we're pouring into other people, but you have to have someone who's pouring into you. You have to be in an environment where you can grow and somebody can constantly be stretching you, because I can't stretch someone else if I'm not being stretched, right? So those are three of the things, just kind of practical things that I just would advise just from a mental health, emotional health, and just kind of staying grounded.
Some great points there, that's for sure. So for people who want to find the book, I've attached all the links here in Australia, but we've got audience all over the place. Tim, where's the best place to grab themselves a copy of this book? And sorry, just before you share that, this book to me is something that I'll be passing on. I was saying to you offline, Tim, it's our book of the month in our men's group and in our book club for January. And I believe it's going to be a powerful tool for people to read who are looking for inspiration and who do deal with adversity, which pretty much sums up everyone in life. And you cover those key points, but it's, as I mentioned, those areas before, community, resilience, and vision, and you touched on those as well, that's what's going to help all of us continue to become the men that we want to be, to become the people that we want to be and create the lives that we want. And having the awareness and discipline to create that for ourselves is a really powerful thing. And I think this book has so many of those golden nuggets and real life, beautiful stories that a lot of people can connect with as well. So I just wanted to say that for those who are listening, definitely grab yourself a copy and pass it on to people. I think it's an invaluable tool to give to, the way I look at it is like a lot of young men who are struggling and maybe don't have those father figures in their life or good role models. A book is a great tool for that as well.
Yeah, so look, I appreciate it. And one, I'm going to ask you a question before we get off here, but the book is, whether it's Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and anywhere where you, in person, your local bookstores, if it's not there, you can request it and they can get it. But again, if you're online, anywhere you typically buy online books, it should be available.
Yeah, awesome.
But I will, with that, I know this is your podcast, this is your show, this is your time. But one thing that's very important to me, one of the whys for me writing this book was I wanted to understand how this story connected with others' stories. Because whether you run a football, catch a pass, to your point, we've all experienced life. And so what was it for you about this book? What resonated personally with you? And that's a question I'll ask you.
It's a brilliant question. Thanks for asking that. For me, I didn't move around a lot when I was younger, but I went to multiple different teams for sport. And my goal was to be a professional rugby league player. And being hit with adversity, and obviously I blamed politics at the time for why I didn't get in certain teams. And I would always sabotage myself. I wish, for me, there was points where you just grinded harder, you worked harder. There was moments where I said poor me and had a little bit of a sulk, and then came back 8 months later, and all that progression and the growth that could have happened was no longer there. But one thing that I did do was keep going to different teams, even though it was over the years I ended up playing in Europe and stuff, and I was always being around better players, and that highlighted a lot to me. And when I finished rugby, I was left at that point where it's like, okay, well, who am I now? And it took 2-3 years until I had to recreate my vision. So getting connected to what do I want from my life and who do I need to become, and actually believing I could be that. I do a lot of visualization, and I know you've spoken about that. They're around like, what do I want my life to look like? Who are the people that I need there to support me, and making sure that the people that are around me when I'm down, they can sort of pick me up, and it's sort of reciprocal. So I connected to so much of that story and the drive and ambition to wanting to be better. And I just, hindsight's a beautiful thing. Wish I had the awareness that you did earlier, because maybe my career would have or could have been different.
That's it's insightful, man. Yeah,
I think, and that's for me where I grew up, and I think a lot of Australian men, in particularly, I guess the circles that I hang around, we all have the desire to be a professional rugby player. Much like for you guys, it's NFL being your biggest sport. For us, it's rugby or rugby league, and a lot of us do whatever we can to get there. But as you were saying, some people, it's their meal ticket. It's like they need to do this. And for others, it's an option. And I think for me, it was an option. I treated it like an option. I didn't really have anything else going on in my life, hence why it took a few years to work out what I wanted to do next. But I treated it like an option, not like a meal ticket, like it was everything that I needed.
That's tough. It's such a fine line between, I talk to young parents of young kids, and it's, talk to my kid about, not being so wrapped up and that they're more than just this athlete and they can do other things. And those things are true, because there is, look, I want my kids to be well-rounded, and I don't want them to be, I think that was one of the challenges that I had in pulling away, was you get so used to, you see someone like a Tom Brady, like you've done it for so long that your identity is wrapped up into it. And it's like, at some point it's going to come to an end regardless. And what now? Like, you're just delaying this process of, what do you call it? Separation and just like detachment and things like that. But in the same sense, it's almost like that obsession and that commitment. Maybe not obsession is a poor choice, but that commitment, that 24/7, 365 commitment to like the development of this gift in this industry, it's hard to beat, right? It's just hard to beat. And so it's the reason why there are things that I'm a firm believer that there's things that we really like, but there are things that we love. And we can't treat things that we really like things that we love, right? Like we got to be able to like really separate the two, because there's only I'm a firm believer, like there are going to be a ton of things that we really like. We're multifaceted individuals. We like, a variety of things, but there are going to be a few causes that we're very passionate about, right? You may have causes that you're interested in that I may not particularly care for, but they are particular to you. And so reserving that level of focus and energy and intensity for those things that we're really passionate for, and then pursuing the things that we really like, so.
I definitely do agree with that. To get to the NFL, for example, there's tens of millions of people vying for, how many teams are there? 32 or
32 teams, 53 on a roster. So
like tens of millions of people vying for those one positions. I really don't believe you can get to the top without, I believe, obsessing over everything to get to that. And it's funny, I started with a new psychologist the other day, and I continue to shake it up just to see what that's like. And we always get back to that same thing, the root cause of wanting to, I'm so driven and competitive for dad's approval. And, I'm okay with that. That's fine. And I guess the blockage there is I don't want to sacrifice that competitiveness within myself. And I do have core things in my life that I just give everything to. And I believe it's why I've become successful in various different things because of that. If I didn't have that competitive drive, and maybe if the underlying driver behind that was seeking approval, and maybe I wouldn't be having the impact that I'm having. So I think there's always a compromise and a trade-off with working towards goals. And if you're okay with the trade-off or the sacrifice or the consequence. And if it's not impacting or damaging other people or anything like that, then I think that is a price of success to a degree.
I love it.
Tim, thanks so much for your time, mate. I'll let you get back to your afternoon. I know you've still got plenty to go on. I'm actually going on a beach holiday today, so it's going to be perfect.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, look, I would love to come visit you on your side of the world at some point, man. It's great to. I appreciate this about technology. We're able to cross and connect, and we're not limited by our respective geographic locations, man. So
Yeah.
enjoy. I'll live vicariously through you this weekend, and hopefully I'll get a chance to experience your world at some point.
And for those who'd love to connect with Tim, I'll put his LinkedIn, his Instagram, website, and the book links in the show notes of whichever platform you're listening or watching on. Tim, thank you once again so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.